All right, guys, we are back in the kiln room in F20 at OHS. And I want to tell you a little bit more about our electric kiln, how we load it, how we work it, all the different parts that we're looking at. And so this is an electric kiln. Her name is Astrid because she is strong and beautiful. And basically what happens is when we are ready to fire a load, we will open her up here, and then it kind of stays open, which is really, really nice. And then inside are these ceramic shelves. And then there are also these things called little posts, okay? So what we do is we'll actually take our ceramic pieces and we will place them into the kiln. And when we've filled up the bottom shelf, we will use these to put down kind of on top of the shelf, and then we can put another shelf on top of that. So it does become a little bit of a balancing Jenga act at times. So try to be super careful. Once it's filled up, we will close the top here. And then before we fire, I always lock it on, okay? And once we start the firing, we cannot open this up again, okay? Basically, there's a couple things we're looking at. These are vent holes. So if we need to kind of adjust anything during the firing, we can do that. We can kind of peep in there too and take a look and see how things are going. And then this is the control box. So it's kind of a big, long red box, but this is the key right here. So this is a touch screen, super dirty. It's a touch screen and everything's just pre-programmable. That's a word. And so I'll hit, right now it's saying it's 65 degrees in the kiln. We'll begin here, and then we can go to program. And then I have my programs loaded here. So I've already set them. I have a cone 06 glaze program. I have a cone 06 bisque program. I also have in here a cone 06 bisque fast. So if things are super, super dry and we want to try to get it done a little bit quicker, we use that one. But most of the time, we're going to use our cone 06 or our cone 06 glaze or bisque. So let's just start it, and we can always cancel it. So we'll do a bisque firing here. And then what's cool is I've already programmed everything. So I don't have to do anything. All I have to do is hit start, and that's it, which is so amazing. But just so you can see what's on here, it has the name of the program I'm using. It has delay, so I could actually program it to start like in an hour. There is an alarm so that it won't go over 2,000 degrees. It'll automatically shut off if that happens. It has estimated time, so the estimated time for this bisque firing is 13 hours and 28 minutes. So that's what we normally do. There are 3 segments, so there's 3 different kind of phases in the firing process. The peak temperature is 1828, okay? And we can view the program here, and we can see that these are those 3 phases. So the first phase is to just bring it up to 250 degrees and hold that for 6 hours. And I like to do that because then I know for sure everything's dried out. So even if something was like a little less than bone dry, 6 hours at 250, it's a low heat and it dries everything really, really good out, okay? It also kind of prepares it for what's gonna happen, so it's not so shocked when the heat just starts going up. The next phase is, it says rate 200, temp 1050. And what this does is it is going to raise the temperature 200 degrees per hour until we get to temperature 1050 degrees. Once we hit that 1050 degrees, we can kind of turn it up a little higher, so we can actually increase the ramp. So we'll go at 300 degrees per hour until we get to 1828, so 1828 degrees. Pretty hot, okay? And then once it hits that temperature, it holds that temperature for 10 minutes, and then it shuts off. Now, the second this thing shuts off, everything in here is still 1828 degrees. So under no circumstances do you open this, okay? You might burn your face off, no joke. So what we do, and the reason why I've programmed it this way, is it'll run and then it'll cool and be cool enough by the time we come to school the next day. And so once it's cool, when we go back, so I'm just gonna go back to the home, it's gonna tell me the whole time what temperature it is. So right now it's 65, and it'll keep telling me the whole time. And what's super cool about this is it also has an app on my phone, so I can be monitoring what temperature it's at, you know, just to kind of keep an eye on it without having to be right with it, which is really, really nice. I can also, you know, see if there's any issues or problems that I need to go take care of, and it just gives a lot of peace of mind. So when we come back in the morning, it might still be at like 300, 200 degrees, and then maybe I'll open it up a little bit like this and just get a little air out, like just kind of let it kind of cool off a little bit quicker. Vent it out, and then once it's low enough, we'll open it up. When we know we're not gonna get burned or anything, we'll open this up, let it air out a little bit, and then sometimes even when it's cooler in here, the pieces are still pretty hot. So we just have to wait till things are, you know, we're able to touch them, and then we will unload the kiln. And once it's unloaded, then we can use that bisqueware and glaze it. And then for glaze firing, we do the same thing. So we load everything up. The difference in a glaze fire, or bisque fire versus glaze fire, is in the bisque firing, that stuff can actually be really close to each other. It's kind of best if they have a little bit of like space for air movement around them. But if you need to kind of pack the kiln pretty tight because you have a lot of stuff, you can do that in a bisque firing. You cannot do that in a glaze firing. If anything's touching or even a little bit close to each other, sometimes they can end up getting stuck together. So if you have like 2 cups and you put them right up next to each other in a glaze firing, they're gonna be one double cup. You won't get that apart. And if they're just a little bit too close together, some of the different glazes actually kind of emit some like vapors, I guess, and they can affect the colors of their neighbor if they're too close. So I always keep things pretty well evenly spaced apart. Nothing's on top of anything. We can still use the shelves to stack up and put more inside, but usually glaze firings, it's half of the stuff that you would put into a bisque firing. So that's important to remember. And the other thing to remember when we are having things due and having things fired is you really need to have good time management. You can see a due date. This project's due on this day. That doesn't mean that's the day you put it on the shelf to be fired. You need to make sure your stuff is getting fired with enough time to be ready for the due date. So we'll talk more about that, and I'll kind of show you typical schedules later on, but just keep that in mind, okay? I'm gonna have due dates for projects, but I'm also gonna have due dates for firings, okay? All right, so that is our girl here. And she has been wonderful. A total game changer for me. Before I was using this guy, Gus, and I love him, but he's pretty tough to handle. It's pretty old, which actually, that's not the problem with it. It's old, but it works really well. It just takes a lot. And it's kind of a struggle, and it makes me have to be perfect, and I'm not perfect. So this is just a lot easier, and lets me do good firings every time. So, all right, so that's our kiln, a little bit about the firing process, and I'll let you go.